The first summer breeze slipped through the window of the old Jeep, carrying the gentle scent of wild grass and rain-soaked earth. Savannah Blake rested her hand on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the weathered wooden sign by the roadside. Welcome to Wildflower Creek. The letters looked handwritten, worn with time, yet full of life, just like this place. She turned onto the dirt road leading to the cabin she had rented online. All around her were the buzzing of cicadas and tall grass swaying in the golden light of sunset. The little house nestled by the lake, with its red-brown roof and porch draped in violet wildflowers, looked like a painting escaped from the real world. Savannah stepped out of the car, her caramel-brown hair tumbling loosely down her back. Her white cotton dress clung to her slender frame, a striking contrast against the green backdrop of the forest. The city had drained her, but here, something made her heartbeat slow just a little. As she opened the trunk to retrieve her suitcase, she heard a sound, like boots crunching on dry earth. She turned and saw a tall figure standing in the shade of an old oak tree. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, lighting up his sun-kissed face, sharp jawline, and storm-gray eyes. His flannel shirt was rolled at the sleeves. Faded jeans clung to his frame. He looked like he belonged to the wild. "What are you doing in this area?" His voice was deep, gravelly, tinged with suspicion. Savannah paused, but didn't flinch. "I'm Savannah. I rented this cabin for the summer. I take it you're a neighbor." He studied her for a moment, as if trying to read her mind. "Name's Logan. My place is up the hill. This isn't really a spot for noisy tourists." She raised an eyebrow, offering a half-smile. "Good. I'm not that kind of tourist." A silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of forest birds. Logan's gaze never left her, as if he was trying to decide whether she was a threat or a mystery worth unfolding. And Savannah, though she didn't say it aloud, felt her heart beat just a little faster. "Watch out for snakes," he said quietly, then turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the trees. Savannah stood still, the breeze lifting the hem of her dress against her skin, but it wasn't the wind that sent a shiver down her spine. It was that look, deep, warning, and impossible to forget. Summer in Wildflower Creek had just begun, and she knew it wouldn't be as peaceful as the pictures in the travel brochure had promised. The early morning sunlight spread across the still lake like a layer of liquid honey. Savannah woke up earlier than usual, not because of her internal clock, but because of a dream. A dream about those storm-gray eyes from the day before. Logan, the man who walked like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. She brewed a cup of black coffee and took her camera out to the front porch. Here, the light wasn't polluted by skyscrapers. Everything felt real, the scent of wood, the gentle lapping of water against the shore, and the swallows gliding across the sky. Savannah wandered along the trail behind the cabin where wildflowers bloomed like a vibrant carpet. Her camera came to life, each click of the shutter a kind of dance. Sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a tender, vivid glow. And then she saw him. Logan stood on a slope beside an old pickup truck, tying rope around a large bundle of firewood. Sweat soaked the back of his flannel shirt, his tall frame catching and hiding patches of morning light. Without thinking, she lifted the camera. Click. One shot. Click. This time as he tilted his head, eyes staring off into the distance like he was remembering something long past. Then he turned. Their eyes met through the lens. Savannah froze. Logan frowned and started walking toward her. "What are you doing?" She lowered the camera, trying to keep her voice calm. "Just taking landscape shots." Didn't realize the landscape would include someone. He looked at her like he was weighing something. Then he stepped closer, close enough to reach out. "I don't like being watched." Her heart pounded, not quite from fear, but something deeper. His presence seemed to fill the entire space. "I'm not paparazzi. If it bothers you, I'll delete the photo." He was silent for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, he held out his hand. "Let me see." She hesitated, then handed him the camera. Logan scrolled through the photos, shots of the lake, wildflowers, the sky, and then came to the one of himself. He stared at it for a long moment. "What do you do in the city?" "I'm a photographer. Mostly weddings, events, but what I really love is capturing what's real." Logan handed the camera back, his lips curving slightly, the first smile Savannah had seen from him. Not quite joy, more like a secret just uncovered. "Real can be dangerous," he said, then turned and walked away. Savannah watched him disappear into the trees, her fingers still resting on the shutter button, not ready to let go. There was something about him, like a beautiful scar. The kind you want to touch, even if you're afraid it might still hurt. The summer breeze blew gently, carrying the scent of grass and rain-soaked earth. Savannah sat on the porch, a cold glass of whiskey in hand, savoring the peace that this place brought. Despite the stillness of the countryside around her, her mind couldn't stop spinning. She didn't know why she was drawn to Logan, the man who seemed like a ghost living in his own home. There was something deep in his eyes, as if he was hiding a story that only the brave would dare face. Yet it was that very allure that made her feel like she couldn't leave. Savannah ran a hand through her hair, feeling the summer air weave through every cell of her body. Suddenly, a faint sound broke the stillness from the backyard. She looked up and saw Logan walking toward her, holding a bottle of liquor and 2 glasses. "It's not easy to find peace here, is it?" he said, his gaze still cold but tinged with sarcasm. Savannah raised an eyebrow, giving a small smile. "I'm not exactly looking for peace. What about you? Did you come here to hide from being disturbed?" Logan didn't respond, only silently sat beside her, his eyes distant as if lost in a vague memory. He poured the liquor into the glasses and handed one to Savannah. She took it and drank a sip, letting the sharp warmth spread through her throat. At that moment, the moonlight shone like silver, reflecting off the distant lake, creating a shimmering trail of light. Savannah felt the atmosphere around her grow intimate and filled with tension. "I've never seen anyone handle the quiet of this place for so long," Logan said, breaking the silence. His voice was deep but laden with meaning. Savannah looked at him, unsure of what to say. She couldn't understand Logan. He was a man who wasn't easily conquered, yet it was that mystery that made her want to know him more. "I like the quiet," she replied, her lips curling into a soft smile. "It helps me think, helps me find myself." Logan turned to her, his eyes filled with doubt. "Is that so? Or are you just running from something?" His question struck her like a sharp knife, unsettling her. But she didn't let him see that weakness. "Who doesn't have a past they need to run from?" she responded, her words more of a self-reminder. That only made Logan smirk. "We all have a past. But not everyone knows how to face it." Savannah took another sip of her drink, feeling the bitterness of the liquor seep through her. She felt like her body was being pulled into something irresistible, as if Logan's gaze could read the deepest thoughts within her. "You're right," she admitted, not hiding it. "But sometimes facing the past can make you lose yourself." A moment later, Logan said nothing more. He only stared at the shimmering lake under the moonlight. Savannah didn't speak either, letting herself drown in the quiet, yet the strange feeling of closeness between them made her thoughts race. Just a moment later, Logan turned to her, his eyes somehow different. His breath became heavier, and, as if unable to resist, he placed his hand on hers. Savannah wasn't startled. She just felt her heart beat faster, each pulse echoing within her like a mysterious call. Their gazes met, no words needed, only an invisible connection between them, one so powerful it couldn't be denied. But then Logan quickly pulled his hand back and stood up, as if he didn't want to sink deeper into this feeling. "Thank you for sharing this evening with me," he said, his voice cold once more. Savannah watched him walk away, but this time she didn't feel the coldness anymore. She felt something shift within her, a change that could be the beginning of a story she never expected. The next morning, Savannah woke up with a strange, light-headed feeling. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting curling patterns on the wooden floor. She pulled the quilt over her head, trying to push away the thoughts of Logan. But she couldn't deny it. The image of him was still there, in his words, in his gaze, and especially in the feeling of confusion he had left behind. She stepped outside, took a deep breath, hoping the fresh air would clear her mind. But as she descended the porch steps, she saw him. Logan was standing next to his pickup truck, his hands clasped behind his head, staring straight down the dirt path. Savannah felt a jolt run through her. The indescribable sensation surged within her, as if his gaze was pulling her into another world, a world where everything was hazy and dangerous. Logan noticed her presence. He turned around and looked at her with eyes that shone like lightning in the night. "Good morning, Savannah," he said, his voice deep and patient. She gave a small smile but couldn't hide the awkwardness inside. "Good morning, Logan," she replied, her voice sounding a little unfamiliar. A brief silence hung between them, only broken by the rustling of leaves and the breeze passing through. Logan suddenly moved closer, making her look up at him. He stopped right in front of her, his warm breath nearly touching her skin. "Do you like it here?" Logan asked, his eyes filled with curiosity but also something sharp, as if searching for something. Savannah stared at him for a long moment before responding. "This place is beautiful. But I think there are things here I don't fully understand yet." He didn't answer right away, only nodded slightly. "Maybe you'll understand eventually." He continued, "Everything in Wildflower Creek has a reason." Savannah felt his words like a warning. She wasn't sure how to interpret them. But in that moment, she realized that if there was someone who knew all the mysteries of this place, it was definitely Logan. They stood in silence for a while, under the soft golden sunlight, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Suddenly, the sound of another truck from a distance interrupted the quiet. A large truck rolled by, kicking up dust. Logan looked toward the truck, then turned back to Savannah. "Do you have any plans for today?" he asked. She didn't want to remain in silence any longer. "I plan to take some more photos, capture a few more moments here," she said, looking at him with a hint of curiosity. "What about you?" Logan smiled but didn't answer right away. He turned and walked toward his pickup truck, pulling out an old map. "I have a place I want to take you." Savannah was surprised. "A place?" Logan nodded gently, his gaze becoming unreadable again. "A place that will help you understand more about Wildflower Creek." She hesitated for a moment, but then felt a pull inside her. Something urged her to go with him. She wanted to know more, to understand more about him, about this place. "All right, I'll go with you." They got into the truck and Logan drove through rugged roads, passing dense forests and lush meadows. Savannah sat beside him, gazing out the window, but her mind couldn't stop thinking about his cryptic gaze, about the irresistible pull he had on her. Finally, the truck stopped at an open field, a wild, untouched place with large rocks and scattered trees. Logan turned off the engine and got out. "This is the place I wanted you to see," he said, standing on a large rock, looking out at the vast scene before them. Savannah stepped out of the truck, her eyes taking in the surroundings. She couldn't deny that this place felt different. Everything here seemed to exist in another time, a world where only nature and fading silhouettes remained. "This place, is there something special about it?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with curiosity. Logan turned to look at her, his eyes darkening. "Every rock, every tree here has its own story. But sometimes these stories are only told to those who truly know how to listen." Savannah didn't know how to respond. She just looked at him, feeling as though she had come very close to something she couldn't fully understand yet. The next morning, Savannah woke up with a strange, light-headed feeling. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting curling patterns on the wooden floor. She pulled the quilt over her head, trying to push away the thoughts of Logan. But she couldn't deny it. The image of him was still there, in his words, in his gaze, and especially in the feeling of confusion he had left behind. She stepped outside, took a deep breath, hoping the fresh air would clear her mind. But as she descended the porch steps, she saw him. Logan was standing next to his pickup truck, his hands clasped behind his head, staring straight down the dirt path. Savannah felt a jolt run through her. The indescribable sensation surged within her, as if his gaze was pulling her into another world, a world where everything was hazy and dangerous. Logan noticed her presence. He turned around and looked at her with eyes that shone like lightning in the night. "Good morning, Savannah," he said, his voice deep and patient. She gave a small smile but couldn't hide the awkwardness inside. "Good morning, Logan," she replied, her voice sounding a little unfamiliar. A brief silence hung between them, only broken by the rustling of leaves and the breeze passing through. Logan suddenly moved closer, making her look up at him. He stopped right in front of her, his warm breath nearly touching her skin. "Do you like it here?" Logan asked, his eyes filled with curiosity but also something sharp, as if searching for something. Savannah stared at him for a long moment before responding. "This place is beautiful. But I think there are things here I don't fully understand yet." He didn't answer right away, only nodded slightly. "Maybe you'll understand eventually." He continued, "Everything in Wildflower Creek has a reason." Savannah felt his words like a warning. She wasn't sure how to interpret them. But in that moment, she realized that if there was someone who knew all the mysteries of this place, it was definitely Logan. They stood in silence for a while, under the soft golden sunlight, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Suddenly, the sound of another truck from a distance interrupted the quiet. A large truck rolled by, kicking up dust. Logan looked toward the truck, then turned back to Savannah. "Do you have any plans for today?" he asked. She didn't want to remain in silence any longer. "I plan to take some more photos, capture a few more moments here," she said, looking at him with a hint of curiosity. "What about you?" Logan smiled but didn't answer right away. He turned and walked toward his pickup truck, pulling out an old map. "I have a place I want to take you." Savannah was surprised. "A place?" Logan nodded gently, his gaze becoming unreadable again. "A place that will help you understand more about Wildflower Creek." She hesitated for a moment, but then felt a pull inside her. Something urged her to go with him. She wanted to know more, to understand more about him, about this place. "All right, I'll go with you." They got into the truck and Logan drove through rugged roads, passing dense forests and lush meadows. Savannah sat beside him, gazing out the window, but her mind couldn't stop thinking about his cryptic gaze, about the irresistible pull he had on her. Finally, the truck stopped at an open field, a wild, untouched place with large rocks and scattered trees. Logan turned off the engine and got out. "This is the place I wanted you to see," he said, standing on a large rock, looking out at the vast scene before them. Savannah stepped out of the truck, her eyes taking in the surroundings. She couldn't deny that this place felt different. Everything here seemed to exist in another time, a world where only nature and fading silhouettes remained. "This place, is there something special about it?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with curiosity. Logan turned to look at her, his eyes darkening. "Every rock, every tree here has its own story. But sometimes these stories are only told to those who truly know how to listen." Savannah didn't know how to respond. She just looked at him, feeling as though she had come very close to something she couldn't fully understand yet. Savannah couldn't shake the strange feeling after that morning. Even though she had left the rock formations and returned to the house, her mind kept spinning with questions. What had Logan said? Why had he taken her there? And what was truly hidden behind his cryptic gaze? She sat on the wooden chair on the porch, the old map Logan had pulled out still lingering in her mind. She wanted to understand, to know everything more clearly, but it felt as though there was an invisible wall separating her from the truth. As she sat alone gazing at the lush fields in the distance, a sound from the familiar pickup truck caught her attention. Savannah looked up and saw Logan driving into the driveway. He stopped the truck, got out, and looked toward her. There was a strange silence between them, as though nothing could break the tense barrier they had created. But then Logan walked closer, his eyes flashing with determination. "Have you thought about what I said?" Logan asked, his voice calm, though Savannah could sense a hint of challenge in his words. Savannah didn't answer right away, only nodded slightly. "I don't know what to think about what you said." She looked at him, her eyes full of doubt. "You talked about your family's secrets, but is that really something I want to know?" Logan stood still, close enough that they could almost feel each other's breath, but still far enough not to touch. He was silent for a moment, as though struggling with himself before speaking. "You've seen the pictures. My family isn't what you thought it was," he began, his voice low and heavy. "There are things I can't change, but I can show you the truth, if you're willing to face it." Savannah felt a tension spread in her chest. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but part of her couldn't resist the urge to understand. "I don't know if I'm ready," she sighed, her voice quiet and weary. "But if I don't try, I'll never know." Logan nodded, his face revealing determination. "Then follow me," he said, turning back toward the truck. "I'll take you to another place. A place where you'll understand more about everything." Savannah didn't have time to think any longer. She stood up and followed Logan, feeling like she was stepping into an uncertain path where light and shadow blended together. Once they got back in the truck, Logan drove through the rugged dirt roads. The familiar feeling of the countryside again made Savannah feel both safe and fearful. Every time they passed the vast fields, she felt a strange sense of loneliness, as though this place wasn't just about her and Logan, but also contained countless untold stories. After a while, Logan stopped the truck in front of a dense forest. Tall ancient trees grew close together, creating a thick curtain that blocked the sunlight. It felt like this forest was hiding something, as if it was a world apart from the one outside. "This is where I wanted you to come," Logan said, his eyes focused on the thick canopy in front of them. Savannah got out of the truck, her heart tightening as she stepped into the forest. The smell of damp earth and fresh leaves made her feel as though she was being swallowed by an enclosed space. Logan led her deeper into the forest, past rocks and bushes, until they stopped at a large stone hollow. Before them was a mysterious stone door, like an entrance long forgotten. "This is the entrance," Logan said, his hands resting on the stone door as he gently pushed it open. "You'll understand everything once you're inside." Savannah looked at the door, her heart filled with apprehension, but there was something in Logan's eyes that made her unable to turn back. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. Once inside, a completely different space opened up. Ancient drawings were carved into the stone walls, strange figures and symbols she couldn't recognize. It felt as though she had just stepped into a place buried for centuries. "What is this?" Savannah whispered, her eyes unable to look away from the drawings. Logan stepped forward, his hand brushing over the ancient symbols. This is where my family began. These secrets, these stories are all connected to them in Wildflower Creek. Savannah felt as though she was standing on the edge of a deep abyss, where all the truths were slowly emerging. And once she had stepped in here, she knew there would be no turning back. Savannah stepped into the stone room, feeling as though each step she took made the space around her grow heavier. The ancient drawings on the walls seemed to tell a story she couldn't fully understand. Strange images, ancient symbols, everything created an atmosphere of gloom and mystery, making her feel as if she had entered a different world, where the rules of the present no longer applied. Logan stood beside her, his gaze still fixed on the symbols on the wall as if searching for an answer for himself. They both stood in silence for a long time before Logan spoke. "These symbols are part of my family's heritage," he said, his voice deep with a hint of sorrow. "They are traces of ancestors who lived here centuries ago. These people left behind warnings, secrets that I'm only beginning to understand now." Savannah felt as though an enigmatic veil was slowly being lifted, but each time she thought she understood, a new question would arise. "So, what do these secrets have to do with me?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry but also full of curiosity. Logan turned to look at her, his eyes full of sincerity but also a hidden anxiety. "My family has lived here for a long time, and these symbols aren't just warnings. They're part of a bigger story, a story that you unintentionally have become a part of." Savannah felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't fully understand what Logan was saying, but there was a powerful feeling that she had been caught in a dangerous game, where every truth came at a price. "I don't understand. Why am I connected to all of this?" she asked, her eyes clouded with confusion. Logan didn't answer immediately but stood there, as if thinking about what to say next. He finally spoke, his voice gentle yet heavy. "You are a descendant of one of the first families to come here. You carry within you an ancient bloodline, a bloodline that these symbols point to. And that's why these secrets have found their way to you." Savannah felt everything start to spin in her mind. "What? I'm a descendant of this family," she repeated, unable to believe what she had just heard. Logan nodded, his gaze filled with seriousness. "Yes. And what you need to understand is that these secrets aren't just about the past. They will shape your future, mine, and all of Wildflower Creek." Savannah couldn't process everything Logan had just said. She felt like she was standing at the edge of a foggy road, unsure if she could continue walking. Everything around her felt hazy, as though every step she took brought her closer to an abyss with no escape. "I don't understand. I don't know what I can do with all this information," Savannah sighed, a feeling of exhaustion rising in her chest. She couldn't ignore the questions haunting her, but she also couldn't ignore the fear of facing the truth Logan was revealing. Logan moved closer, his eyes locking with hers as if he wanted to convey something important. "You don't need to understand everything right now. We'll take it slowly, step by step. But you have to know, not everyone is chosen to know the truth. And you, Savannah, have been chosen." Savannah felt trapped in an invisible snare, unable to escape. But her curiosity and the strange bond between her and Logan made it impossible for her to stop. "So, what do I do now?" she asked, her voice filled with resolve. Logan looked at her for a moment, then pointed to a drawing on the wall where a strange image had been sketched. It was the image of a door, but not like any door she had ever seen. This door had ancient markings and shimmered as though it contained a mysterious energy. "This is the door that leads to where you need to go," Logan said, his voice deeper than ever. "And when you step through this door you will know everything. But don't forget, every truth comes with a price." Savannah stared at the image of the door, feeling as though the space around her was spinning. She knew that taking the next step wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that she could no longer turn back. The path ahead was unclear, but she had no choice but to move forward. Savannah stood before the strange drawing of the door on the wall, her heart filled with confusion and fear. Even though Logan had warned her about the cost of the truth, a part of her couldn't resist the intense curiosity. Everything seemed to pull her into an unending spiral, and each question only made her more lost in a mysterious maze. Logan stood beside her, silently observing, his eyes glowing in the dim light of the torch. He knew she was going through an emotional storm, but he couldn't do anything more than let her decide whether to continue. Savannah turned to look at Logan, her gaze filled with both determination and worry. "So, what is this door?" she asked, her hand lightly touching the lines of the drawing, sensing a strange feeling as if the drawing had a life of its own. Logan sighed and stepped closer. "This door isn't a physical object, it's a symbol. A symbol of opening other doors within your soul. The symbols on it are a reminder, the truth only comes when you're ready to face it." Savannah didn't fully understand what he meant, but something in Logan's tone made it impossible for her to refuse. She knew she had come too far in this journey to turn back now. "So, what do I do?" she asked, feeling a shiver run down her spine. Logan smiled lightly, though it wasn't a comforting smile. "You just need to believe in yourself and step through that door. Don't worry, you won't face everything alone. I'll always be here to guide you." Savannah didn't respond immediately. She looked at the drawing and then turned back to Logan. Part of her wanted to give up, but another part urged her to continue. She took a deep breath and made her decision. "I'm ready." She stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the image of the door. When her hand touched the drawing, a wave of strange light suddenly surged, causing the space around her to light up in an instant. Savannah felt as though she was passing through an invisible wall, and then, everything vanished. The entire space shifted. The drawings on the walls faded, replaced by an entirely different scene. She found herself standing in a dense forest, where ancient trees towered high, blocking the sky. The air was fresh, but thick with the earthy scent of the woods. It felt like she had entered a different world, one she had never known. "Where is this?" Savannah gasped, turning to look at Logan, but he was no longer by her side. She searched around but only saw dim shadows and thick tree canopies. A voice suddenly echoed, soft yet powerful, making her jump. "You have arrived." Savannah turned around, her heart racing. A woman stood there with long black hair and eyes as bright as moonlight. She wore a long green dress, and around her was a misty glow as though she didn't belong to this world. "Who are you?" Savannah asked, feeling a chill run down her spine. Who was this woman, and why was she here? The woman smiled, but her smile was not one of comfort. "I am the keeper of these secrets. And now you are part of them." She took a step closer, her voice mysterious. "You must know that what you see today will change everything. The secrets that Logan's family has hidden will force you to face a difficult choice." Savannah felt a tightness in her chest. She didn't know who to trust. This woman clearly knew something that Savannah didn't. But an overwhelming urge kept her from turning back. "What choice?" Savannah asked, her eyes locked on the woman. "You will have to decide between keeping this secret or freeing it. Once you choose, there will be no turning back." The woman replied, her eyes shimmering as if witnessing a great event unfolding. Savannah couldn't breathe, the sense of suffocation overwhelming her. She wanted to know the truth, but if that truth was too painful, could she face it? It felt like she was standing at a crossroads, where every choice led to a future she couldn't return from. She looked around, and when she looked up, she saw Logan standing in the distance, his eyes fixed on her with expectation. He was waiting for her, but Savannah knew that she had to make this decision alone. I will free the secret," she said, her voice firm, even though her heart was filled with fear. The woman smiled and took a step back. "Then you have chosen," she said, then disappeared into the mist, leaving Savannah standing there, facing whatever was to come. Savannah turned back to look at Logan. He walked towards her, his eyes full of understanding and concern. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice deep and warm. She nodded, and together they began walking into the deep forest, where the secrets began to unfold, and where the truth could change everything. Savannah and Logan walked through the misty forest, where faint light filtered through the thick canopy of trees. Each step they took seemed to bring them closer to something irreversible. The strange sensation never left Savannah's mind, and within her, the anxiety grew stronger. Even though she had decided to uncover the secret, she still didn't know what awaited them ahead. Logan walked beside her, but he said nothing. The silence between them was like a veil, making everything feel increasingly uncertain. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was partaking in a game with no clear rules, and she couldn't predict the outcome. "Logan, I don't understand everything that's happening. I can't keep going like this without knowing what I'm doing," Savannah finally spoke up, her voice thick with emotion. Logan turned to look at her, his eyes filled with empathy but also concern. "I know how you feel, Savannah. But sometimes the truth isn't easy to accept. You've chosen this path, and now we must continue moving forward." Savannah stopped, her eyes fixed on him with doubt. "What path? Do you really know what we're doing?" she asked, anger rising in her chest. Logan didn't avert his gaze. He sighed and spoke, "I don't have all the answers, Savannah. But we're on this path for a reason. And you'll understand when the time comes." Savannah felt trapped in a whirlwind of unanswered questions and irreversible decisions. But she couldn't stop now. A part of her knew that something far more significant awaited her ahead. And no matter how afraid she was, she couldn't turn back. "Why me?" Savannah asked, her voice lowering, full of curiosity. "Why am I the one who has to bear this responsibility?" Logan stopped, turning to look at her. "You don't understand everything. My family has kept this secret for generations. And now you are the one chosen to do what those before us couldn't. Savannah felt as though she were being swept into a dark fairy tale from which she couldn't escape. She had made her choice, but it seemed these choices would not only change her life but everything she had ever known. They continued in silence until the forest began to thin out. An old house appeared in the distance, quietly nestled between hills. This house didn't resemble any she had ever seen. It was ancient and decaying, as if it had been abandoned for a long time. But something within her told her this was where they needed to be. "Where's this?" Savannah asked, a shiver running down her spine. Logan glanced at the house, then turned back to look at her. "This is where it all begins. We need to go inside." Savannah had no choice but to follow. She took a deep breath and followed Logan into the house. As they passed through the heavy wooden door, a misty haze enveloped them, making everything seem dim and indistinct. The air inside was cold, as if it had not known life for a long time. They walked through dark hallways, each step echoing in the silence. Every room they passed was empty, only showing the fading marks of time. But in one room at the end of the hall, a large wooden table stood in the middle of the room, and on it lay an old book. Logan walked toward the table, his eyes never leaving the book. Savannah approached, feeling an invisible pull drawing her closer. As she looked at the book, she saw yellowed pages with strange characters she had never seen before. "This is my family's book," Logan said, his voice growing somber. "It contains all the secrets about our past and future. And you, Savannah, will be the next one to read it." Savannah looked at Logan, her eyes filled with worry. "I'm not sure I can do this." Logan placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes gentle yet firm. "You don't have to do this alone. I'll be here. Together we'll uncover the truth." Savannah looked at the book one more time, knowing that from this moment on, her life would never be the same. This decision wasn't just about uncovering the past, but also facing a future full of danger. She picked up the book and opened the first pages. And as her eyes skimmed over the words, a wave of strong emotions flooded her heart. The symbols were not just warnings but reminders of the immense responsibilities she had to bear. At the same time, a cold wind blew through the room, carrying with it a sense that the truth was near, and no one would be able to escape it. Savannah could feel each beat of her heart as her eyes lingered on the ancient text in the book. Every character seemed to whisper to her, telling stories long forgotten and events buried deep. The secrets that Logan's family had kept hidden for so long. She skimmed through the yellowed pages, the light from the torch beside her making the words fade into the darkness. And then finally she stopped at a particular page, where a bold line stood out. "Only when the truth is freed will the price be paid." A cold sensation spread through her. Savannah realized that this prophecy was not just a tale. It was a warning of consequences that could not be foreseen. What she had chosen might change not only her own life but the lives of everyone she loved. Logan stood beside her, his gaze serious but devoid of worry or fear. He had long been prepared that this journey would not end easily. "Savannah, are you sure you want to continue?" Logan asked, his voice warm but filled with determination. She looked up at him, her eyes meeting his. In them she saw not only love but also sacrifice and faith in her. Savannah took a deep breath, feeling the pain and sacrifice she was about to face. "I have to do this, Logan. No matter how painful, no matter how hard, I have to face the truth." She placed the book down and began reading aloud the ancient words she couldn't understand. Instantly, a powerful light burst forth from the book, shaking the entire space. The dark room suddenly blazed with brightness, and everything around them began to shift. A strong sensation overwhelmed Savannah. She could feel the change in the air, as if the whole forest and the house were coming alive. And in that moment, she realized that she wasn't just opening a book, but a doorway into another reality. A shadowy figure appeared before her. A tall woman with eyes full of rage and sorrow. It was the woman who had spoken to her in the forest, the one she had met in her dreams. She stepped forward, her eyes burning red like fire. "You have freed the secrets of this family, and now we must pay the price," the woman said, her voice cold and sharp. Savannah felt her body tremble, but she did not retreat. "I am not afraid of the truth." The woman laughed, but there was no joy in it. "You will have to face the consequences of knowing too much, Savannah. No one can escape their fate." The space around them seemed to swirl into a haunting vortex. The ghosts of the past began to materialize, images from the hidden secrets, events that Logan's family had tried to conceal. Logan stood beside Savannah, unshaken. He took her hand, his eyes locked on the ghostly woman, unafraid. We've made our choice. Nothing will stop us now. Exactly, Savannah said, her voice stronger than ever. The truth cannot be buried forever. The shadowy woman stared at them for a moment, then finally nodded, her gaze filled with both acknowledgement and regret. Then you have chosen, she said, and then disappeared into the mist. As the ghost vanished, the space around them immediately fell silent. Savannah felt as though everything had returned to normal, but a strong sensation within her told her that the journey was not over. She turned to look at Logan, their eyes meeting, and in that moment, all her worries and fears melted away. She knew that no matter how difficult the road ahead, they would face it together. For both of them had chosen this path, and together they would face whatever came. We've freed the truth, Logan. Now we'll live with it together, Savannah said, her eyes shining with determination. Logan gripped her hand tightly, pulling her into a warm embrace. And we will build a new future, one without secrets or fear. They stood there beneath the faint light of the setting sun, while everything around them seemed to settle. Their journey was not over, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And together they would overcome everything. Thank you for following the story.